Good morning, guys. Today I'm going to be doing something that I've been meaning to do for so long, and that is finally to write a synopsis for my novel. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I have a hard time talking about my novel when people ask what it's about, or for a little preview, or what's the plot, what are your characters like. I have such a hard time taking this massive thing, which is my novel and my overarching vision for this complicated story, and squishing it down and making it simple enough to share with any old person on the street. So I'm challenging myself today to actually write a short, sweet, simple synopsis of my novel so that I won't have this problem anymore and I can become more confident in talking about my novel and sharing my idea with other people. Now, based on my research, there are two kinds of book synopsis. The first is the one that you will give to your literary agent in hopes of them passing it on to a publisher. This synopsis is a summary of your book from start to finish. You need to include the characters, the plot line, any subplot lines, and surprisingly, the ending of your story. This is going to be a longer synopsis, maybe 1 to 2 pages, 500 to 1,000 words, and in this synopsis, you are trying to sell your story to the publisher. It needs to be clear and succinct. It needs to be witty. It needs to highlight all the most important and compelling parts of your story in terms of the plot and also in terms of your underlying message, that kind of thing. The other kind of synopsis is kind of the short, snappy little synopsis that you'd find on the back of a book. Typically, the backs of books do not give away their ending. They kind of just introduce the book, what it's going to be about, and maybe leave you with a bit of like a cliffhanger, like, ooh, what's going to happen? They kind of lead you up to the climax, but they don't reveal the climax necessarily, and they definitely don't reveal the resolution and the ending of the book. I've been thinking about which kind of synopsis I'm going to write today, and I think I'm going to write the shorter synopsis that would appear on the back of my book because, first of all, the formal synopsis that you would give to a publisher is never going to be published. Readers are never going to read that because it gives away the ending, and the publishers don't want to give away the ending because they want the readers to buy and actually read the whole book. So for me to write that kind of synopsis and share it here on YouTube is kind of giving away the ending of my story to my viewers, and I don't necessarily want to do that because when I finish this book and hopefully when I publish it, I would love for you guys to be able to obtain copies and read the book for yourselves, and I don't want to spoil that here. But I think writing a short, succinct back cover synopsis for you guys and sharing that with you guys today is a fine idea. It'll kind of give you an understanding of Project Portrait, my novel. It'll get you into my head a little bit, understand what my writing interests and goals are, and I think that's totally fine. So I'm just going to give you guys a couple examples of some of these short, snappy back cover synopses. This one is from Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell, which is a fantastic book, and I hope to read it again soon. And this is the synopsis, quote, "To be poor and destitute in 1920s Paris and London was to experience life at its lowest ebb. George Orwell, penniless and with nowhere to go, found himself experiencing just this as he wandered the streets of both capitals in search of a job. By day he tramped the streets, often passing time with screevers or street artists, drunks and other hobos. At night he stood in line for a bed in a spike or doss house, where a cup of sugary tea, a hunk of stale bread, and a blanket were the only sustenance and comfort on offer. Down and Out in Paris and London is George Orwell's haunting account of the streets and those who have no choice but to live in them." End quote. So that's the synopsis. It kind of shows a couple situations that Orwell finds himself in the book, but it doesn't give away the whole book or everything that happens to him, because there's a lot more than him just sitting there in the streets wanting some bread. You know, he works, he encounters people, he does things. So this is a good example of a synopsis that isn't too revealing, but does kind of give the general gist of what the novel will be about, if that makes sense. Then I'm going to read the synopsis for Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, and this is one of my favorite books. I love to read it in the spring. I watched the movies over and over as a kid. It's just one of those heartwarming tales that never gets old. This is a pretty detailed synopsis in my opinion. It kind of gives the whole idea of the story without giving away the ending because it leaves readers with a couple questions. So here's the synopsis for Anne of Green Gables. Quote, "When Marilla Cuthbert and her brother Matthew decide to adopt a child from a distant orphanage, they don't quite get what they bargained for. The child who awaits them at the tiny Bright River train station is not the strapping young boy they'd imagine, someone to help Matthew work the fields of their small farm, but rather a freckle-faced, red-haired waif named Anne, with an E, if you please. Matthew and Marilla may not be sure about Anne, but Anne takes one look at Prince Edward Island's red clay roads and the Cuthberts' snug white farmhouse with its distinctive green gables and decides that she's home at last. But will she be able to convince Marilla and Matthew to let her stay? Armed with only a battered carpetbag and a boundless imagination, Anne charms her way into the Cuthbert's heart, and into the hearts of readers as well. So I think that's a very charming synopsis. It sort of gives away that, yeah, she gains the hearts of the Cuthberts, but you're not sure how this is going to happen. The question is still open. Will she successfully do it, or will she have to leave Green Gables? I'm going to attempt to write a synopsis similar to these today for my own novel. This might be a bit of a challenge for someone who has never tried to summarize her work, but let's go. If you are in a similar state where you've got a creative project and you haven't written a synopsis yet, why don't you get out yours right now and kind of work along with me and let's do this together. So I just discovered that the more common phrase used for this kind of back cover synopsis that I've been talking about is a blurb. So I might try to refer to it as a blurb from now on, just to kind of keep it separated from the more professional synopsis that you send to a publisher. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Alright, so I've come up with a back cover synopsis, and I think I'm going to share it with you guys. Yeah, please don't judge. This is actually really scary because I've never shared this with anyone before, and here I am on the internet, giving a summary of my secret novel. This is it. As the world undergoes a great change, the daughter of the preacher grows up in a seaside town riddled by self-righteous legalism. With a keen eye on the world and one foot in the sea, the girl, accompanied by her best friend, the town reject, embarks to discover the free world through reading and studying. She eventually leaves town for the university, where she meets two men and a woman who ultimately show her who she is and reveal the illusion of the free world. Left alone in the big city, the girl abandons her former aspirations for the underworld, only to return, years later, to find the free world in the very seaside town she'd abandoned. Now, this last little part I realized gave away too much of the ending, so I've tried to reshape it into a question. So, alone in a wreck, the girl begins to write her story, but will she uncover the secrets of self and history she's been craving, or descend to the underworld and never return to the seaside town which beckons her still? That is kind of the best I've got for now. It sounds really cheesy when I say it out loud, but I promise that my idea makes sense. Regardless, yeah, this is my idea. Feel free to share your thoughts if you think it's silly, or if it didn't make sense, or if you're confused, or if you liked it. Don't spare my feelings too much, because feedback is always good. And I'm always looking for opportunities to grow and get better at what I do. So then I thought it would be fun if I wrote some like ironic synopses, kind of making fun of my novel. Not even really making fun of it, just kind of summarizing it in a funny, entertaining way that, yeah, it kind of pokes fun at some of the ideas. So I wrote 3. One is longer, the second one is medium length, and then the third is like 1 sentence. And I just thought they were funny, so I'm going to share them with you to kind of lighten the mood here. So, ironic synopsis 1. A disturbed autodidact with a lousy family grows up trying to take revenge on her unforgiving Dutch town. She rejects her sweet male bestie and heads to the city for university, where she spends her days being rude to the goofball who seems to be in love with her, trying to outwit her smart girl rival, and attempting to seduce the pious genius who she believes is meant to be her life partner. Eventually, her true rottenness comes out and she destroys her life and moves to Italy to live a life of contempt and hedonism before returning to her small town and discovering that she's also an idiot. Yeah, funny, right? Okay, ironic synopsis number 2. A literary snob has an awful childhood and tries to make it better by studying hard and being smarter than everyone else, only to lose focus in university because she's man-hungry and eventually destroy her life and lose everything that mattered to her. And ironic synopsis number 3. Bad selfish girl goes to uni, screws around with the wrong people, and ruins her life. Now, I'm mostly kidding. These are obviously meant to be humorous, and they very much simplify my ideas and make my ideas look kind of dumb, but you know what? it's okay to not take yourself so seriously and not take your ideas so seriously and poke fun at them once in a while. So that's why I shared those. Anyways, I feel kind of good about my back cover synopsis, my blurb, and my ability to share it with people now. If they ask me what my novel's about, just say, well, this paragraph here kind of summarizes it. I do think I'm going to write the more lengthy professional synopsis eventually, but I'm going to wait till I'm actually done writing my novel before I do that, because right now the ending is still kind of in a fog in my head. I'm not sure exactly how things end. I'm not sure how I will refine my ideas and my characters in the editing process. So I'm going to leave that to after I have a final draft and I'm ready to get a literary agent and submit my novel to a publisher. Anyways, that kind of ends today's video. I hope you found it enjoyable watching me try to summarize my novel in this back cover synopsis. I hope my ideas made sense. I hope maybe you took away some tips and ideas for writing your own synopsis and perfecting your own writing craft. And this was really fun, and I really enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you've written a synopsis before and how you did so, and if it differed from the way that I did. Just let me know your thoughts. I love to hear them, and I love to respond to them. So keep that up, guys. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you again in my next video.